So welcome to the World Tour of Meditation. Our purpose is to debunk myths around meditation, transcend the fear going on right now so we can feel inner peace, calm, and joy. And so delighted to have with us Dr. James Gordon, the founder and executive director of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine.
Good to be here with you this afternoon. It's afternoon here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, James. So James recently wrote this book called The Transformation. And I wondered if you wanted to say anything about it before we dive in. Would you like to say anything about The Transformation?
Sure. I'd love to say many things about it. First of all, I like the cover. The cover is about the process. It's about each of us flowering. And the point of the book is it's a guidebook to the possibilities that lie within the traumas that come to all of us. And right now, that trauma is a universal trauma. The trauma of the coronavirus is coming to everyone on the planet. And the book is essentially a guidebook of how to deal with the stress that we're feeling, the anxiety, the fear of the future, the sense of uncertainty, and how to use a kind of meditative mind to begin to come into balance physiologically and psychologically, and then a whole program, a step-by-step program for using every aspect of our mind, of our body, of our imagination, our relationships with other people to bring us through this significant stress that we're experiencing, to help us deal with the trauma, and not only to become rebalanced and become more resilient, but also to use this very challenging experience as an opportunity to become the people whom we're meant to be. And the flower on the cover is a kind of symbol of that flowering that's possible in each of us, regardless of our age, regardless of our ethnicity, gender, and regardless of the history that we've had, including a history that many of us may have had of prior trauma. So this is a book. I wrote the book because people were saying to me, well, you've written about different subjects like depression, and you wrote a book about the new medicine, and you've written a book about cancer. Why don't you write a book for all of us? I said, okay, that's this book, because trauma is going to come to all of us sooner or later. If not early in life, because we're born into poverty or born into an area that's violent, or because our parents are abusive or neglectful, or because we have a childhood illness, then likely when we're young adults or in midlife, when we have situations that are very distressing to us, or relationships that's important breaks up, there's a major disappointment in our career, our parents become ill or indeed die. And if trauma doesn't happen then, it will surely happen if we're fortunate enough to grow old, because we'll become frail, we will lose people we love, and we'll have to deal with our own death. And right now, this whole process is accelerating because all of us are dealing with the issue of the threat of the coronavirus to ourselves, to people we love, and in fact, to everyone on the planet. So the book, I didn't know that the coronavirus was coming when I wrote it, but it's here, and I mean for it, and people are using it as an effective and very helpful and friendly handbook for dealing with this current universal trauma.
Thank you for writing it, and thank you for the synchronistic timing that you've written it in. You're doing extraordinary work with the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And I wondered if you could speak a bit to, I read that you've worked in war zones and brought meditation to places such as Kosovo and the Giza Strip. And there are ways in which our governments speak of the current pandemic as similar to wartime economies, as similar to how we deal with war. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit to that from the perspective of what we can do as individuals, because most of us haven't experienced war. And you speak about meditation as Yeah.
Sure. Well, no, it's a great question, and there are clearly similarities. One of the similarities between living through a war, living in a war zone, and how we're living right now, is that we have a limited capacity to control what's going on in our environment. We cannot, um, we cannot stop the spread of the virus. As individuals, we can isolate ourselves, but we don't control where the virus goes. And in war, similarly, we cannot control whether people are going to continue shooting, whether bombs are going to continue dropping. What we can do on an external level is to create as much physical safety as we possibly can. And in a war, that may mean sheltering, it may mean removing yourself from the combat zone, it may mean being in the basement rather than on the second floor of your home. And here with the virus, obviously, it means sheltering in place and social distancing. That's on the external. But one of the things, or one of the crucial aspects of our lives that we can control, is how we relate to those events that are outside, whether it's a war that's raging around us or a coronavirus that's circulating in the environment and spreading. And meditation is the royal road to not only to controlling our own physiology and our psychology, but to creating that state of mind in which we're best able to deal with all the uncertainty, all the fear, all the disruption that comes up, whether it's from a war where people are shooting in the streets and tanks are rolling into the neighborhood, or a coronavirus pandemic where we're reading these statistics every evening. We're seeing how many people who have contracted the virus, how many people have died, how many people are hospitalized, the need for ventilators. So there's a very similar kind of cacophony of information and events outside that are distressing and disturbing. And for me, meditation, it's funny to say it's not optional, but it is really so needed for all of us to come into balance so we can have so we're in the best place physiologically and psychologically to deal with the actual threat of the virus on the one hand, and also to deal with all the things, all the fears and all the uncertainty that go with having a pandemic. And so just at a simple level, all the talk now, or virtually all the public talk, which is important, is about what individuals can do on a behavioral level to protect themselves from the virus, sheltering in place, keeping social distance, or what we can do on a social level to make sure we have the masks and the ventilators and the gloves that are necessary to protect ourselves and that we're mobilized as a society. But we've neglected what we can do with our own human organism to help protect ourselves. And I think this is important to understand that not everyone who is exposed to the virus is infected by the virus. And not everyone who is infected becomes seriously ill and dies from the virus. And there are, and I'm not saying we have any hard evidence about the effectiveness of meditation and other techniques that bring us into biological and psychological balance. We don't have any hard evidence of their benefits in this coronavirus pandemic. But we know, for example, that meditation on a biological level enhances our immune functioning and makes us less vulnerable to infections, including other coronavirus infections. Those studies have actually been done. So that's on not this coronavirus, but there are many coronaviruses. We don't know about this one, this COVID-19. We don't know if it's effective, but we have everything to gain and nothing to lose by coming into biological and psychological balance in terms of helping to protect ourselves against this virus. And so why not do it? And then beyond that, we know for sure that meditation will help us deal with threatening situations in a way that is more productive, less likely to render us anxious and depressed and have difficulty focusing and difficulty sleeping. So meditation, which importantly comes from the same Sanskrit and Greek root word as medicine, meditation is powerful medicine. It means to take the measure of. That's what Sanskrit scholars tell me. I don't know Sanskrit, but it means to take the measure of and to care for. MEDI in both Sanskrit and Greek. So meditation is medicine, and the ancients understood this. And we need to appreciate it as well, and we need to make it a fundamental part of our healing, of our well-being, of our strategies for prevention and health promotion during this time.
I have so many questions. That's beautiful. However, I think what you've just said necessitates the question, James, can you please guide us through an experience?
Sure, I'd be very happy to. First of all, there are millions of specific meditation techniques, but there are three basic categories. The first is concentrative meditation, focusing on a word, a sound, an image. Mantra meditation in Hindu tradition is focusing on a sound. In Western monotheistic religions, repetitive prayers are technically concentrative meditations, whether it's Our Father or Illallahu Illallah or Shema Yisrael. Those repetitive prayers are concentrated meditations. And so, of course, it's Hare Krishna in Hindu tradition. So concentrated meditation is the first kind. That's the one I'm going to teach. Now, then there's mindfulness meditation, becoming aware of thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they arise. And as far as we know, we can credit Siddhartha Gautama, the man whom we call the Buddha, the man who woke up, with creating mindfulness meditation about 2,500 years ago. So mindfulness meditation, 2,500 years old. Concentrated meditations, probably at least 5,000, maybe 10,000 years old. We don't know how long they've been around. And then there's the oldest kind, expressive meditations, which could be fast, deep breathing, shaking and dancing, jumping up and down, whirling, shouting, laughing. And these are the oldest ones on our planet. And all of our ancestors did these meditations. And as far as I know, every indigenous people I've either come into contact with personally or have read about who are alive today use these expressive meditations. All meditations are useful. None is better than any other. If we say one is better, that's hardly a meditative thing to do. Meditative mind is saying, let's use what works. Incidentally, that's one of the things that Buddha said. Truth is what works. So if X meditation works for you, beautiful. That's the one for you to use. If it stops working, there are many others. Now, the one I'm going to do right now is a very easy, simple, non-denominational, concentrative meditation called soft belly breathing. And I'm going to teach it. And after, if people want to learn more about it, they can look at the Center for Mind-Body Medicine website, cmbm.org. And I go into it in some detail, and they can have that, that they can download that video and use it. There's a, when are we going to be, when are you going to be putting out this podcast?
This video is going to air sometime next week.
Next week. Okay. They'll be able to look on our website also and see me doing a kind of longer version of soft belly breathing than I'm going to be able to do here. This will be a brief version that anyone can do. And anybody can do this. That's the thing. What I talk about in the transformation is this is really so simple. And, well, I'm not going to talk about it anymore right now. Let's just do it. Okay. So sit comfortably in your chair. And I'm going to close my eyes as I do this. I encourage you to close your eyes. Some meditations are done with eyes open, some with eyes closed. I find it's easier, much easier to do this particular concentrated meditation with eyes closed. It removes a great deal of external stimulation. So allow your breathing to deepen. And breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. This is a very relaxing way to breathe. I know it may be a little unfamiliar for some of you, but you'll get used to it after a bit. As you breathe like this, in through your nose and out through your mouth, you can say to yourself, soft, as you breathe in, and belly as you breathe out. You're concentrating on the word soft and belly and on your breath. And as you do this, as you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, repeating to yourself, soft as you breathe in, belly as you breathe out, feel your belly relaxing and softening. Breathing slowly and deeply like this, in through the nose and out through the mouth, with your belly soft and relaxed. More air goes to the bottom of your lungs, where there's better oxygen exchange. So more oxygen goes into your bloodstream and flows through your bloodstream to all the organs in your body and feeds those organs. Breathing slowly and deeply like this, in through the nose and out through the mouth, with your belly soft and relaxed, helps to activate the vagus nerve. That's Vagus. Vagus means wandering in Latin. And this big nerve wanders up from your belly, through your chest, back to your central nervous system, to your brain. It slows heart rate, lowers blood pressure, helps to relax the big muscles in our bodies, and improves our digestion. When the vagus nerve is activated, it's the antidote to the fight or flight response, the antidote to the stress response. It quiets activity in the amygdala. That's Amygdala. That's a Greek word that means almond. This is an almond-shaped part of our emotional brain, responsible for fear and anger. And breathing slowly and deeply like this, in through the nose and out through the mouth, activating the vagus nerve, enhances activity in the frontal part of our cerebral cortex, in areas responsible for thoughtful decision making, self-awareness, and compassion. And one branch of the vagus nerve connects with other nerves that are responsible for facial expression and speech. So when we're breathing like this, slowly and deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth with our belly soft and relaxed, we're quieting our bodies, calming the fear and anger that we have, enhancing our capacity to look at situations clearly, to be self-aware, to be kind to ourselves and others, and also making it easier to read other people's facial expressions, to tune into their words. Breathing slowly and deeply like this in through the nose and out through the mouth, with our belly soft and relaxed, all the muscles in our bodies begin to relax. And you can feel that. Feel the muscles in your belly relaxing as you exhale, and the muscles in your pelvis and your buttocks as you exhale. Feel the muscles relax in your legs and feet. Feel the muscles relax all up and down your back as you exhale. Feel the muscles relax in your chest and shoulders. Feel the relaxation in your arms and hands as you exhale. Feel the muscles relax now in your neck and face and head. Feel your whole body relax with each exhalation. To encourage this process of relaxation, say to yourself, soft as you breathe in, and belly as you breathe out. If thoughts come, let them come, notice them, let them go. Gently bring your mind back to soft belly. Now slowly, gently open your eyes. Let your attention come back in the room.
Thank you.
Back?
Yeah, back.
So how was that?
I just wanted to laugh in the beginning, and then again when you said soft belly, when I was repeating it, I just like, it was almost like my belly just wanted to laugh.
Oh, good. How do you feel now?
Very expanded and spacious. My breath is easy, and I
Beautiful.
feel very present.
Good. You know, when we're doing this, I feel good too. I feel
Sorry, I
very
didn't ask.
peaceful.
I assumed you felt good.
And I
Sorry, James, it cut out. The internet
am
did.
also laughing a little about 2/3 of the way. Just enjoying that sense of relaxation.
Could you
You
repeat?
know, the interesting thing. I'm sorry.
Could you repeat that, please? The internet dropped for a second.
Yeah, no, I said I found myself smiling and even laughing a little too. One of the interesting things, and I feel very good now, very relaxed, very easy. One of the interesting things is that no matter where or with whom I do this, and I've done it with tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people by now, is that always somewhere between 70 and 90 or 95% of people notice a change. Could be the kind of change that you described, a sense of expansiveness and presence. Other people notice shoulders relaxing or heart rate slowing down. Maybe the room feels a little brighter when they come back, or they feel a little more connected to other people. This is really crucial. This is crucial part of healing past trauma and dealing with present stress, is understanding that we have the capacity to make a change in ourselves. I can't change what's happening with the coronavirus in Italy, or for that matter, what's happening in all of Washington, D.C. I can take care of myself, be safe for myself, but I can also come into balance. And I cannot be so fearful. I cannot be so troubled by the uncertainty that is going to be there. And this is what this does, is it reminds me every time I do it that there is something that I can control, and that's myself, my breathing, the way my whole physiology is working, the way my mind is working, and that when I do that, I'm more capable of dealing with whatever the stress is that's coming up. And if some of the people who are watching the video didn't experience a change the first time, that's okay. It may come the second time or the third time. Or if by any chance you're saying to yourself, I just can't sit still. That was about 10 minutes, I suppose, that we're doing it. I can't sit still for that long. Well, first of all, do it for less time. Do it for 5 minutes, do it for 3 minutes. I wanted to teach the physiology and have people have the physiology while they were looking at this video again and again. Um, but also, if you're so anxious that you can't even sit still for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, Get up and do something active. Burn off some of that excess energy you have. Jump up and down, scream, shout, um, do some yoga postures, do whatever you want to do to relax a little on a physical level to get some of that physical energy a little released, and then come sit and begin with whatever amount of time suits you. And a lot of people whom I've worked with around the world over the lot, I've been doing this for now 45 years, this technique. And people I've worked with, sometimes they'll say, I couldn't do it for 10 or 12 minutes, but I could for 4 or 5 minutes. And I started doing it, and everything started to change. I began to focus a little better. I began to realize that I had the power to make changes. I got brave enough to make some other changes in my life. Maybe I started exercising a little, or changing the way I ate, or I started looking at my relationship with my family in a somewhat different way, or I started using some of the techniques that you teach to help us use our imagination to find solutions to problems. This soft belly breathing is foundational, and it's the beginning and can be the beginning of a major process of self-healing that any of us can do.
James, what is some of the biggest impact you've seen this have in places that are like when you teach this in war zones?
Well, what I've seen is that people who are literally out of their minds with anxiety, with anger, with fear, are able to come back into balance. When you asked me that, first thing I thought of is some of the school teachers in Gaza. And Gaza, they've had 3 major wars in the last 10 years. They're in a constant state of siege. There are shortages of food. Everybody's anxious all the time. Many of the high school teachers who we've worked with were hitting the kids. They're beating the kids with sticks. And not only high school, elementary, middle school teachers in classrooms. Now, they're not supposed to be doing that. But they're so anxious, so irritated, so angry, so much on edge. And after they started doing soft belly breathing on a regular basis, it's like they woke up, like a light bulb went on. So, I'm a teacher. I'm not here to hit these kids. I can deal with them without doing that. So that's just one example. But anger is one of the things that comes up in a war zone. And I think it's coming up in a lot of people in this situation. I don't know if you've heard that as well. In this situation too, people are short-tempered with each other. They're irritable, they're angry, and they take it out on people who are weaker. So one of the things that we've seen during and after wars is men who never raised a hand to their wives, hitting their wives, and women who never beat their kids, beating their kids, and kids who were generally, not violent kids, getting in fights with each other all the time. So this irritability, this anger, this state of fight or flight, we can quiet it simply by doing soft belly breathing. That's a foundational way to do that. The other thing is that people are a little less afraid. They have a little bit more confidence in dealing with the situation. They're able to see it more clearly because, as I described in the physiology, we're quieting the part of the brain that's sort of in the amygdala, that fear and anger part, and we're strengthening the part in the front of our brain that's responsible for thoughtfulness and good decision-making and self-awareness. So we're not as terrified. We're able to look at the threat, whether it's the threat of a war or the threat of the coronavirus, in a more realistic way. And the other thing is that we're able to tune in to people in our environment more easily, so that instead of being so wrapped up in our own fears and anger, we're able to pay attention to and be sympathetic or empathetic with the other people in our lives.
Thank you. Is there a specific event in your life that you feel has really prepared you for the work that you're doing right now, and the space that you and the Center for Mind Body Medicine are able to hold right now?
I'm not sure. It's a really interesting question. I'm trying to, let me think if anything comes to mind. Um, a couple things come to mind. One is a time when I was in my early 20s and I was in medical school, and I've been down south and been doing some work in the civil rights movement, not a great deal, but some work in the civil rights movement down south. And I did more when I came back up north. And I was in a car with my father. And for whatever reason, we were in a kind of deep conversation. And I said that the most important thing to me, um, and this had come out of my experience of just having gotten back from being down south, most important thing to me was love. And my father said, well, yes, love is important, but, you know, you have a family and, you're going to be a doctor and that's what you got to be focusing on. And I started crying. And I said to him, no, I understand that, but the most important thing in everything that we do is love. I don't know that my father was a surgeon. He didn't quite register, but it was okay. He sort of got it. So that's one point. I think the other time is when when I became chief resident in psychiatry, and I decided I was going to create a psychiatric ward where people were not going to be medicated, where people could go through the experience that they had, whatever it was, often mostly a psychotic experience or very serious depression, and that I would do everything possible to guide and guard them and create an environment where they felt safe so they could go through this experience and learn from this experience. And I decided that I was going to do this. I was going to take a chance, and I was going to do it. And I was very fortunate because the chairman of the department was willing to allow me to do this. He said, I'll spare you his profanity, but basically he said, okay, you want to do this? You're a really good resident. You know what you're doing. This is pretty extreme idea, but there's a certain intelligence in it. And if you do it badly, and this is where his profanity came in, I'll cut your throat. But if you do it well, oh, my hat's off to you. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I was willing to put my whole heart and my whole soul and my whole body. I used to sleep on the ward in the men's dormitory a couple nights a week. So I think those two experiences, the willingness to put myself out there and to see this, to focus, first of all, on the vital importance of love in everything that I do. Not that I'm always in that place of being loving. I'm sure my colleagues could point to times when I was quite impatient and not nearly as loving as they would have liked. But still, I understood fundamentally the fundamental that love is what this work is all about. And then the second piece is being willing to walk into situations of great tumult, of great threat, of great disruption, great uncertainty, and to put myself in those situations and do my best to create a safe and ordered place so that people could go through the very difficult experiences that they were going through. In this case, it was psychotic people, mostly from the Bronx in New York City, but also people I'd written some about a similar kind of experiment in London that R.D. Laing had done in the Atlantic and the magazine. So people came not only from the Bronx, but from various places around the United States. And I was willing to do it and put myself out there and do my best to create that safety. So that's a kind of, in a sense, you're reminding me that that's a kind of model for everything that I've done in the 50 years since then.
Thank you, James. That second story that you shared brings to mind two questions that I really want to ask you. One of them is, you mentioned there's this third form of meditation, expressive meditation. And when we spoke on the phone earlier, you made a comment, if I may repeat it, that you believe that fundamentally um, all healing is shamanic. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that. I sort of see some connections in the example that you shared in the expressive
I'm
meditation,
sorry, say the last thing. I didn't hear the last words. All healing.
that all healing is shamanic.
I didn't say that this time, but I have said that other times. Yes.
The phone,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course it is. Yeah, I mean, and there's a wonderful book that my dear friend, now departed friend, Jerry Frank wrote. I don't know if you've read it, called Persuasion and Healing.
No.
You
Um,
should check it out.
cool.
Jerry was a sweetheart. Jerry was professor of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins. He was on the advisory board of the Center for Mind Body Medicine. He was a champion of my work when I was a researcher at the National Institute of Mental Health. Anyway, Jerry wrote this book, and what he said is that the elements that are there in modern Western medicine, the elements of the sort of healing, are identical with the elements that are present in traditional shamanic healing. And that what we're doing is we're mobilizing people's capacity for faith and hope. We're creating a safe place for people. We're mobilizing their capacity for faith and hope. We're providing support for them as they go through the experience of being healed. The methods are different, but the fundamental stance of modern healers derives very much from ancient shamanic healers. I think the difference is that shamanic healers had more faith in what Hippocrates called, or at least he would have called it if he spoke Latin instead of Greek, the vis medicatrix naturae, the healing force of nature. That is, that we need to believe in the healing force of nature. Yes, there are external shaman may use, a traditional shaman may use rituals of different kinds and different words, and may use herbs. A modern physician may use drugs. And of course, modern physicians have their own rituals. There's certainly the rituals of, getting undressed and putting on a gown and listening to the physician listening to the chest. So we're creating rituals, and then we're using specific methods that are specific to a particular culture, modern Western medicine or indigenous people's healing. And where we're intelligent, where we're using our intelligence, we're understanding that so much of the healing is going to come from within each person, and that our job as physicians, as traditional shamanic healers, is to mobilize that healing force of nature. Ambrose Paré, who's the great surgeon, said, I would never cut a body if I didn't believe that God, and you can substitute nature, would repair it. How could I cut somebody open if I didn't believe that nature would repair it? And similarly, Voltaire, in a somewhat different vein, said, the physician keeps his patients amused while nature heals them. So we're creating this opportunity. Yes, let's use our tools, use whatever tools we have for healing, but we also want to mobilize each person's capacity for self-healing. And meditation is one of the most powerful tools for mobilizing our capacity for self-healing. And it also opens the door and makes it easier to use all the other self-care tools. If you develop and cultivate a meditative mind, it's a lot easier to eat mindfully, to choose foods reasonably. It's a lot easier to have the discipline that's necessary for a program of exercise, and to appreciate exercise, to enjoy it instead of seeing it just like as a chore and as a necessity. So it's all tied together, and this is part of what we want to do. This is very much a part of this modern shamanic healing, is to help us cultivate the resources that are there, that all humanity has available to us.
Thank you. And the other question, briefly, is what would you say is the difference between, if any, between healing from trauma after the event, if it's event-based, versus what perhaps is going on right now for humanity with coronavirus?
Good question. I think what's happening in some sense, it's very similar. Because if we've been traumatized before, and we're still carrying around those symptoms, and a lot of symptoms that we have, I think it's really important. And then one of the reasons it's important for people to read the book and to begin to reflect is a lot of the symptoms that we have of anxiety, of irritation, of fear, of inhibitions, we may not understand exactly where they come from. And they so often come from previous trauma that we've experienced. And sometimes we're aware of it. Let's say, you had a difficult relationship with a parent who was brutal and negative, and you now have a difficult relationship with people in your lives who are in authority, who are, you're afraid that they're going to come down on you in one way or another. You may be aware that, well, that goes back to my father or my mother or somebody who was aggressive and overwhelming to me. But so often we're not aware. And even then, we still need to resolve the symptoms. So the first thing is we need to become aware of what's going on. And as we become aware, we realize that we're carrying around the burdens of that previous trauma. So we're carrying it around that we may still be in fight or flight. We may still be anxious. All of us who have cold hands ordinarily. Well, that's probably because we're in a state of some anxiety. We're in a state of fight or flight. Or anybody who's got problems with digestion. 9 out of 10 times, it's not Crohn's disease. It's not colon cancer. It's the anxiety that creates what we call, irritable bowel syndrome. You have headaches. So much of that may be. So we're carrying around in a physiological way the burdens of past trauma, and we're replaying in our minds those images of when we've been traumatized. So it's as if the past were present. We're prisoners of that traumatic past. Now we're living through a time of trauma, so it's there in our faces all the time. So I don't know, I don't think that the ways of dealing with it are really very different at all. And in a place like Gaza, my team jokes with me. They say, Jim, this is not post-traumatic stress. This is ongoing traumatic stress. And that's what we're in right now. It's ongoing traumatic stress that we're all experiencing. So it's even more important because the other thing is that if we have been significantly traumatized in the past, we're more vulnerable to this present trauma now. That's just the way our biology works. So it becomes even more important to develop a comprehensive program for trauma healing, which is healing the trauma of the past and also making us more resilient in the present and helping us to deal with whatever is going to come our way in the future.
What happened with that ward that you spoke about earlier? The ward.
What happened in that ward?
Yeah.
Well, I'm laughing because it was such an adventure. I think for some of the people, especially the younger people who are having their first psychotic episode or their first episode of suicidal depression and then made a suicide attempt, it was enormously valuable. And many of them, I don't have a formal follow-up on what happened. The ward lasted 6 months, but many of them were able to come through their psychotic experience or their profound depression wiser, more balanced than they were not only before they entered the psychosis, but in some cases before they had difficulties at all. They really came through. They learned from the experience. For other people who had been psychotic for a long time, and when word got out on the state hospital where I created this ward, that we were doing this on the ward, people from all over the hospital started wandering up to the ward and saying, and saying in their own unique way, hey, man, I want to be here. I heard what you're doing. I want to be on this part. So I invite, okay, you know. So for those people, I think for the most part, what they would say, what they did say is this was a good experience. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that we cured what was called chronic schizophrenia. No, I wouldn't say that at all. But I would say that these people had 4 or 5 or 6 months of feeling respected, of learning some new skills, of having a little bit more trust in the world, a little bit more faith in themselves. Did they lose their hallucinations? No, many of them did not. So I think it was very variable, but I think for just about everybody, it was a really good experience.
And why do you think it is that people wanted to come to that ward?
I'm sorry, say again?
Why do you think it is that people wanted to come to that ward?
Because I think they heard that people were being treated with respect. That's the first thing on the ward. That they were not being forced to take medication if they didn't want to take medication. That there was that there was more of what hospitals hope to have. There was perhaps a little more of it on that ward, a little more of truly being a therapeutic community, truly being a place where you could feel that you were getting help. I'm not saying the other wards were bad, but people had a sense that there was more potential, more possibility for them. And you know, the medication that people take, many serious side effects. I mean, back then we were just beginning to realize that people who were long-term on medications like Thorazine could develop this irreversible neurological condition called tardive dyskinesia, you know, really deforming, a terrible kind of condition. And people were, you know, they were recognizing, they knew that they were having these neurological symptoms, and they were, you know, kind of shaking and had strange movements, and the heads were moving, and so they wanted to see, is there another way? And I think this is really important, that one of the basic principles of Western medicine is, you know, is first do no harm. That's what you learn in medical school, sort of on, if not on day one, pretty soon. First do no harm. So this kind of approach, whether it's with psychotic people or people who are experiencing anxiety, as so many of us are now, or people who are feeling depressed, that the first line of approach should be one that does no harm, that has no negative side effects. So that's the approach that I'm presenting in the transformation, as opposed to going to medications which produce inevitably, even if they relieve symptoms, almost inevitably, they're going to produce side effects that are uncomfortable. 70% of the people who take antidepressant drugs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or the selective serotonin norepinephrine uptake inhibitors, rather, you know, like Prozac and Effexor, all the different medications, 70% of those people experience significant side effects. Plus, we now know those medications don't work nearly as well as the original researchers hoped they would. Not that they're not helpful sometimes, but they're not nearly as helpful as the original researchers had hoped. And in fact, in some of the re-examinations of the studies of these medications for people who are depressed, they don't work any better than placebo, and they certainly don't work better. Placebo just kind of sugar pills, and they don't work better than psychotherapy, than talking with someone, or physical exercise, or meditation, some of the meditation techniques that we're teaching. So I think it's really important always to be looking for an approach that mobilizes our own capacity to help and heal ourselves. I'm not saying don't ever use medication. I'm saying use it wisely, and use it when we can't mobilize our own healing capacity. And if you are using medication for whether it's anxiety or depression or sleep, you can also use the comprehensive approach I describe and present in the transformation. And that many of the people who've been on medication, who've used that approach, have been able to decrease their medication or get off medication altogether. Because you're mobilizing, just on a simple level, you're raising the same levels of neurotransmitters in your brain that the medications are designed to raise. So when you meditate, soft belly breathing or mindfulness meditation, you're increasing serotonin, you're increasing dopamine, you're increasing endorphins, which is what the drugs are trying to do in the first place, one or another or several of those different neurotransmitters. So let's use our own healing capacity. That's my message. And the idea is everyone should have these tools. This should be part. When I started the Center for Mind-Body Medicine, I wanted to make, and I still want to make, this approach central to all healthcare, the training of all health professionals, and the education of our children. These are skills that every one of us should learn, and they're especially important right now.
And it's extraordinary the work you've done with that and that you are doing with that. One of my friends who works in regional government just got trained in your system and is helping people with wildfire surviving, and just
Yes.
to see how you've brought what has once been considered, esoteric or not mainstream into a very well accepted, usable, easy to understand, easy for the mind to understand and digest as well, even when you guided us through that soft belly, it's really profound. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's profound. It's not always easy, but it is simple. And any of us can do it. And we've taught these techniques to every imaginable kind of person, and we've taught it to kids as young as 3 years old. And it's our heritage. This is our heritage as a species, and it's we're bringing together the wisdom of the planet in sharing these techniques.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, James. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to say?
Just that it's a pleasure to be with you, Daksha. I look forward, when this coronavirus pandemic subsides, to seeing you in person. And I encourage people to look. If you're as engaging and as thoughtful with all your guests, which I assume you are, people should watch these videos. And thank you very much, and thank you too for your appreciation of me and my work and of the transformation. So look forward to next time.
Thank you so much, James.